Computer. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ripple Bed podcast with me, Dr. Rob Francis, and
Uh, me, Dr. Kerry Hadley Price.
uh, regular listeners will know that we are the lecturers in creative and professional writing at the University of Wolverhampton, and we are also the editors of Ripple Bed Press.
Yeah.
And we are running this monthly podcast to talk about all things creative writing, literature, publishing, creativity, and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
This week, or this month, we are
Mm.
talking about the novel as a
Uh,
form. And I suppose some of the key debates, discussions, ideas around phrases such as everybody can write a novel, can't they?
mhm,
Everybody's got a novel in them.
mhm.
And I think we want to sort of take that to sort of bat that ball around a little bit, don't we,
Yeah.
Kerry?
Yeah, we
And
do. Yeah.
maybe land a little bit further into the conversation with, so you want to write a novel?
Mm.
What next?
What
What?
next?
How do we get into the starting
Yeah,
blocks?
and what to kind of expect of yourself. I mean, this
Yeah,
is quite a complex aspect, isn't it, of creativity and of wanting to be creative. So yeah, it's it's certainly a phrase, this kind of everybody can write a novel, or everybody's got a novel in them, that as writers, I suppose you and me, we come up against quite a lot in our
hmm,
daily lives. um, and it is often the motivation for people who want to come and do a degree in creative and professional writing
absolutely.
at the University of Wolverhampton, which is, of course, the best place to do it.
It is indeed.
Um, um, so it does kind of it's an area of it's a subject area that provokes a lot of interest and discussion and a lot of writing actually about. So what do you think, Rob? Do you think everybody can write a novel? Here you go. Here's the question for you. Do you think everybody can write a novel?
Um, my short answer is no. I don't think everybody can write a novel. I can understand where the idea comes from, because as we've said in previous conversations, um, you know, we all have access to words, and we all have access to the alphabet, and we all have access to grammar and punctuation. And even if you're not an expert in those things, you can easily develop a rudimentary understanding of those things and make yourself expressive to some
Mm,
extent. And to a large extent, because we are storytelling animals, all of us carry stories with us, and all of us have some tale to tell
mm,
to some extent as well. But there is a lot more to the novel as a form than meets the eye, I think.
mm.
Just because you happen to be particularly good at sharing an anecdote in the pub
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean you've got the chops and the
yeah,
resilience, the patience, and the way of kind of slowly unpicking and unpacking the jigsaw that is the novel.
yeah,
I think I think people underestimate actually just how complex. Well, it's a weird thing, isn't it? Because on one hand, I think people underestimate the complexity of the form of a
mm.
novel, but simultaneously, it is regarded as the kind of, at least in our contemporary worlds, the peak of literary achievement as well.
Yes,
You know,
yes, it is. Yeah,
there is a difference between having written a sequence of poems and writing a novel.
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Perceived, I think. I mean, I don't agree with that, but I think it's perceived and it's sort of understood in the kind of market
Yeah,
of publishing and literary ideas as
yeah,
well. Uh, I think there's something about the process of a novel that is very, very challenging.
yeah,
Challenging in a way that other sorts of writing isn't. Part of that is about the pace. Part of that is about the kind of layers that are required of a good novel.
Mm.
And by that I mean layers of imagery, layers of setting, layers of character, the sort of slow reveal of
Yeah.
things.
And
Uh,
the tying up of threads,
yes,
you know,
indeed.
that there is a difference, isn't there? Well, there's a lot to say about this, really. I mean, I've got uh, a chap that I know who is also known by one of our alumni, um, Paul Lamont.
Uh-huh.
He knows this chap as well. His name is Neil Campbell. Now, Neil
Yes,
lives in Manchester. He is a short story writer and writes novels,
and a brilliant poet as well.
and a brilliant poet. So he's got an all-round creative, very
And just while we're
fascinating guy.
on the topic of Paul Lamont and Neil Campbell,
Yep,
we'll give them a quick shout out. It's Outside Left that you want to
it
check
is.
out. Some
Yeah,
great short stories, great poems, great pieces about music and culture.
yeah,
Highly recommend their books and their website.
yeah, definitely. And I think that
Sorry, carry
Neil's
on.
no, it's fine. And I think that Outside Left, Paul Lamont has published something of Neil's, who's also published through Salt Publishing and
Hmm.
various other places as well. But what Neil says uh, is that he well, I don't know, how true this is or whether it's just hyperbole, really, I don't know. He'll say that he will write a novel in between writing a short story. So for him, the intensity and sort of depth of writing a short story is is different. I wouldn't say it's not easier. Is more difficult than writing a novel, but difficult in a different way.
Yeah.
And I mention this because of what you've said. Actually, people think that the writing of a novel is like this is it. You've achieved your pinnacle of success if you've written this because you've focused on, I don't know, a minimum of 60,000 words or something. Um, and while yes, let me tell you, and you will agree, the writing of a novel is definitely challenging, um, and it presents itself in lots of different ways as a puzzle and as a problem. Um, I agree with you that I don't think that everybody can write a novel that anybody else would want to read. That's the key.
Yeah, well, that's a really important point, isn't it? I
Yeah,
mean, having an idea
yeah,
is one thing. Having an idea that's pleasing or curious to you is
yeah,
one thing. But the role of a good artist, whatever
mm,
form they're working in, is to take that idea and shape it in such a way that makes it more accessible. Accessible, maybe not the right word, but at least opens it up to a
yeah,
wider audience or serves some kind of public
mm,
intrigue or good as well.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a big part of the kind of creative dilemma
I
itself
think
that
so.
we want idiosyncratic
Correct. Yeah,
um, expressions, but
yeah.
also that they hold some kind of either universal weight or regional weight or
Mhm.
national weight to them as well.
I agree, and I think that technology has perhaps prompted the sort of proliferation of this kind of thought of everybody can write a novel, because in the past, and not that long ago, actually, there was no such thing as the internet, and there
Mm.
was no such thing as self-publishing, because self-publishing was vanity publishing, wasn't it? If you wanted to, you could go to a printer and get your novel or whatever it was printed
Yeah,
out.
quite.
These days, to self-publish your own novel isn't considered to be such a bad thing.
No.
Lots
I
of
mean,
people are
that's a
very
relatively
successful.
recent thing as well, isn't it? I mean,
It,
it's
it
only really the
is,
last decade or so
yeah,
that
yeah.
it's become less frowned upon, let's say.
I think so. Or because people used to think, well, if you publish it yourself, it's because nobody else wants to publish it, not good
Yeah.
enough. And I think that sort of turned the corner a little bit. I also think that what part of the reason for this, everybody can write a novel, everybody has got a novel in them, has come from the proliferation of the number of novels being published, and
Mm.
people think this would be great. This would be great, wouldn't it, to stay at home, tap out, 60,000 words every month, and bam, there I am,
Yeah,
Stephen King.
indeed.
um, I think, and I think that the problem is that writing a novel that is not going to encourage people to review it badly, because that is the other thing. I think that when people decide that they're going to write a novel and they commit to it and they write 60, 80, 100, 120, 150,000 words, is a lot. And then for whatever reason they decide to publish it one way or another, or it gets published,
Hmm.
then you're placing your baby out into the ether,
Yeah,
and reviewing. Everybody's got an opinion. That's the other thing that the internet allows. So I think this is another thing that people don't consider when they sort of throw out everybody can write a novel, is that the effort that's involved in writing the novel, it is a bit like having a child. Nobody wants nobody wants somebody to say, of your offspring, my God, that's an ugly kid you've just
yeah.
produced. And yet, write a bad novel, or write a novel that somebody doesn't like. And by the way, you can't please everybody.
Hmm.
Uh, and have someone go, as they did with one of my novels, actually, bless them. It was so bad I put it down the toilet. I mean, I don't believe they did, but the metaphor was there. Can be quite upsetting. So, so, so
Yes.
I think, I think what people think is, um, and maybe I did. Maybe this is something that was in my mind as well. I can write a sentence and I can do cursive script, and I'm interested in reading, and I've read some pretty bad novels that I've not been really very impressed with. I can do better than that. So it's not an unusual thought to have, is it? To think,
No.
well, hang on a minute. Also, and people thinking, oh, I really don't much like my job, and look at all these people earning £500,000 a week, with by writing novels. I'll have a go at that. So you can kind of understand the motivation for it, and you can
Yeah.
sort of
And I think, like
understand.
you say, that the tech has helped
Yeah.
with that as well, because, you know, not just in terms of the publishing, but, you know, if you go back even 70 years, let
Mm.
alone further afield, um, people were writing either longhand or on typewriters.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Um, Whereas now we've got word processing
Mm.
software, which allows you to say to yourself, I've written 2,000 words today.
Yes,
The word count is now at 50,000 words. And just that ability to track your output
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
makes it a lot easier to say, I'm succeeding, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And I don't think that's
Yeah.
necessarily a bad thing, but it does bring about, I think, uh, a further expansion of
Definitely
everybody can
does.
write.
It definitely
It's
does.
not.
And the technology that allows you not even to have to write. You can just talk it in to a software
Yeah,
package.
yeah,
And
and the
and
research perhaps that goes into it as well. I mean, we're much luckier now that we're able
yeah.
to verify something within minutes or
Yeah.
read about a subject fairly easily. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, it's slightly different for our processes because obviously we're sort of physical writers as much, in
Yeah.
terms of our practice of moving and walking and whatnot.
Yeah.
But many writers aren't like that. Many writers simply have an idea and put it down.
Yes, they
Um,
do. Yeah.
but it's much easier to go, oh, well, what kind of suits were they wearing in 1920? Tap,
Exactly.
tap, tap,
Yeah.
tap, tap. Four
Yeah.
seconds
Yeah.
later, you've got
Well, yeah,
a range
exactly.
a
What
range
would
of
they have? What
terminology
would
that
they
you
have
can
drunk in
use.
the pub? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of drinks were popular? Yeah,
Whereas
exactly. Yeah,
previously you might have had to go to the archives or go and
yeah.
talk to a historian or read
Yes.
several history books
Yeah.
to get the answers on those things.
Mm.
So there's definitely a sense that the novel writing process has become more streamlined.
definitely it has. And I think as well, what the, if we go back that far, of course, there was a particular class of people, person
Yeah,
who
yeah.
wrote
People that
novels.
had the leisure time to be able to
Yeah,
do that. Yeah, and the wealth
yeah,
that allowed that leisure time. Yeah.
that's exactly it. And I think sort of added to this, everybody can write a novel. And I don't know if this has ever been said to you, Rob, is um this is another phrase. I could write a novel
If
if
I
only
had
I
the
had the
time,
time.
yeah.
As if really that's about all you need. And I've got to be honest, definitely that's what you need. You definitely need time to get your head in the game, because you are teasing out a really complex, irrespective of whether it's a simple plot
Mm,
comparatively, you are teasing out a very complex puzzle that somehow you've got to make it work for you. I
yeah.
think one of the things that people, and when I've spoken to people, sort of students as well, who've decided that they're going to, when we've done our modules about writing novels, is how it surprised them about the level of cognitive energy that's involved in this, making sure of remembering, planning, even if you think you're not a very big planner. um, you know how, how easy it is to say, oh, stuff it, I can't be bothered. Come on, I'm going to go and play tennis or golf
Yep.
or play my musical instrument or walk the dog or something. It's um it it, it is a lot more. I mean, it's not working down a mine, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot more challenging than I think people think.
Mm,
So yes, it's about commitment, um, but it's not an easy task by any means. And I think what people do is they look at the likes of, we were talking earlier, weren't we, about Stephen King, for instance,
yep.
who has a lot to say about writing.
Hmm.
Has written, of course, his sort of memoir stroke how to, called On Writing, and continues to proliferate and produce a lot of writing from over the course of decades, really.
Yep.
And people look at him, and it is certainly true. I'm just going to duck my head beneath the parapet here. That maybe some of his novels aren't as good as the ones previously, should we say? You know, there's a variation of quality, and
Yep.
people will say, well, look, if he can do it, if he can get published, I can get published. Um, um, but there's a lot to learn about the publishing process, isn't there? And
There
about
is.
who you know and what you know. Um, so yeah, that's my view. I think, I mean, I would encourage anybody to follow their creative ambitions, and not to hold back. But my answer is the same as yours. Yes, everybody might be able to put words together, but whether they can write a novel or not is.
Yeah. So I suppose the answer with everybody can write a novel, can't they, is yes, but.
Hmm, yeah.
Um,
Mm,
and I think I lean on kind of the great Alexander Pope
mm,
with this
why
as
not?
well.
Yeah.
A little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And uh and his sort of sentiment in his poem essays, um, of learn
Mm,
your craft first, and that
yeah.
I would say is the first point that comes after the but in that
Yeah.
sentence. Yes,
Yeah.
everybody can write a novel, but
Yeah.
first learn your craft, and it's kind of it's a necessarily slow process
Yeah.
uh, to learn that craft as well.
I
In the
think
same
so.
way that you can't just turn up for work on a building site and say, "I want to be a joiner."
No, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that sort of commitment to the cause is something that is the very first kind of move, first stage, isn't it?
Hmm.
Well, your end game might be that you want to write a novel, and everybody can write a novel, but there are stages to that. And ultimately, yes, of course, you've got to sit down and actually do it.
Hmm.
But it's a bit like saying, well, here's a pile of wood, make me a kitchen, please. So,
Yep.
which would be useful at the moment, I can be honest. So, so yes, I mean, I think it's a surprise to people, isn't it? How when they dig down into the mechanics of the creativity that's involved, or the creative act of writing a novel, um, uh, where it is they've got where their learning needs to take place, or where their sort of new things that they need to learn to know got to take place. It's like anything really, isn't it? I think the if the impulse is there, um, my advice would be, if you've got an impulse, you're reading lots of novels and you enjoy novels, okay, give it a try and see where you're falling down. I think find out a little bit about you yourself, about where you're
Mm,
having difficulty in getting going.
I
Um,
agree.
there are courses that I've sort of run and stuff and done workshops, which are blithely called begin your novel and then finish your novel,
Yeah.
uh, as if that's
But if
it.
you could, yeah. 12 weeks.
Yeah, 12 weeks. 12 weeks
Um,
of
yeah. So that brings me nicely into the next sort of question that I wanted to prompt for our conversation. So if we're in agreement that not everybody can write a novel, but
Mm,
or rather everyone can write a novel, but dot dot
mm.
dot.
Yeah.
The question below that then could be, um, well, who can then? What is it about being a novelist that
Mm,
requires certain traits, characteristics, and whatnot? And you've already pointed us towards one, which is if you're drawn to it in
mm.
some way. And I think that is, I mean, it sounds facile
No,
to
it
a
does.
certain
Yeah.
extent, but I think if you have some impetus in you, some sense of inspiration, some sense of drive that's
Mm,
constantly calling you back to a particular idea and to a particular form,
yeah.
then that indicates a certain sense of curiosity
Yeah.
in that particular person. It implies a certain set of um, obsessions, perhaps,
Yeah. I agree. I think that
and
it is. Yeah.
and traits that would bring that about. And
Mm,
and that sort of person is probably more likely to succeed
mm.
at that type of task,
Yeah.
as well. But what else do you reckon? What else
Well,
is
I
it
think
that the novelist
mm,
specifically needs to have in their toolbox or needs to have in their armory, either
well,
in terms of personality, but also in terms of technique and craft and
technique and craft. I think even before we get to that point, and this is perhaps you know, um, inadvertent philosophical question in some ways, is what do you mean by the novel?
mm,
When you say novel, what do you mean?
yeah,
Um, um, and I think that, the simple answer to that is a very long form story,
yeah, a long narrative.
a lot of words.
Yeah.
Um, although there is a novel, and I've been trying to wrap my brains to think about what it's called, and it's 5,000 words. So, but we won't go down that line. It's a bit complex. But I think that people who decide, for whatever reason, that they want to write their first novel, they've never written a novel before, but they just yearn, they have this impulse. To people that I've met and my own experiences, um, will say, I've had this idea for ages. I've got this idea in my head, and it's been brewing, for ages, and sometimes even decades, when
Mm,
people have, been living a life where they've just been busy and working and having children and doing normal things that people do in life. And this kind of idea has been rolling around in their head. Um, I think that there are a few things. Um, Sometimes people think that it's the idea has to be allowed to brew, to
Hmm.
ferment. And I think that's not really necessary. I think for
Well,
somebody
there's something
to,
that you can do to speed up that
I think
fermentation
you've
process,
either,
isn't there?
yeah, the fact of the matter is, and this is sort of brutal in a way, if you're not writing, you're not a writer, are you? So
Nope.
that's that, So it's all right saying I've got this idea in my head. You need to get it on a page, is what you have to do. You put the words on the page or on a screen or however it is you choose to do it. So I think there has to be a level of courage and bravery. And this is not courage and bravery because you're going to show it to other people and other people are going to say it's crap. Um, this is courage and bravery to get that idea out of your head where it's been safe for quite a long time. Because I think sometimes people who are novelists, again, this is a sweeping statement, but here it is, can sometimes be very thoughtful, quiet, and sort of insular type of individuals who've got
Hmm.
have got lots of ideas and creative things going on in their head, and they like to keep them there. But the problem is you've got to get it out. So if you want to write a novel, some of the things you've got to do is experiment with your thoughts, and this means that some of the stuff that you're going to put down in your notebook or on your screen is going to come out differently to the way that it was in your head.
Yeah.
And you might think when you look at it, this is a pile of old rubbish, and I feel like a fool now because I've been thinking about this for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so it's about there's a sort of a courage that's involved in that. The other thing I
There
think is
is, and I think a part of that is the weird struggle that happens in any kind of writing, I would say, or any kind of proper thinking,
yeah,
um, between taking something that's kind of an embodied knowledge,
yeah,
something that you carry with you in snips of thought and instinct
definitely.
and whatever, and trying to then articulate it. Because it's
Yeah,
in the process of articulating it that you realize, okay, well, this is either a good idea or a bad idea.
yeah.
Or it's an idea that I thought was one thing that happens to be another.
Definitely. Yeah. I think my experience of people who are, it's like a bubble to me. It's like a balloon bursting, and the balloon bursts, and then woof, it's all out there. And the people that I've kind of known or worked with who are this kind of writer virgins, if you like, suddenly, whoa, there it is. Um, what they're beginning to learn, or what you begin to learn when you first start to do that, is that there is an epiphany that takes place because you've got it out. You've revealed your secret to yourself. But what you've also revealed is actually, I don't think I know very much about the act of writing, the
Mm,
act of creative writing. I can formulate a sentence and I know how to use an apostrophe and a comma. But why is this coming out so, it's really boring. Yeah, and anyway, I've written, I don't know, maybe 4,000 words, which is a lot, but there's a story out on the page. And probably what you've written is your plan, actually.
yes, yes.
Um, and I think
Or your rubbish first draft.
your rubbish first draft, you've kind of regurgitated what's been in your head as it's come out of your mind, which is very close to free writing, isn't it?
Hmm.
And what that is okay. That's fine.
Yeah, I
What
mean, I would say it's a necessary and a messy and necessary part of the process.
most definitely. I think you've got to do that. But I think what some people believe is that and I've read that, some well-known writers have actually said this, although it's never happened to me. This novel just came out of me perfect in one
Yeah.
go. Rare, I would say. That's
Mm,
like very, very rare.
indeed.
Um, your idea will come out of you in whatever form it feels like it ought to, and you have got to then manipulate it into some kind of order.
Yes.
And I think that's when people begin to think, oh, I don't really know how you do it, I've got the kind of metaphorical wood and hammer and tools and things. I don't really know how to put it all together. Um, so I think that's when perhaps a bit not just I always say that all reading, I say this to our students, all reading, whatever it is you choose to read, short stories or novels or research, obviously, all reading is research.
Hmm.
So this is about reading who you like to read, but reading as a writer. We've got a module on that, haven't we?
Indeed. Yeah.
Which is, and people find it hard, reading a novel or reading work, not whether you like it or whether, oh yeah, I'm following it. Um, what is this writer doing? I think that's a really good thing to do to set yourself up to really start thinking, what is this writer doing?
Yeah.
How are they doing it?
That's a really
Um,
good practical bit of advice, I think, for,
yeah,
you know, you want to be a novelist?
yeah,
First thing to do is start reading novels, but not just reading them and saying, I liked this, or I
yeah,
didn't like it, or I thought that was okay, or I thought that was rubbish.
yeah,
I think actually, like you say, reading as a writer or reading for the research of it as much as you are for the fun and entertainment of it.
mm,
And I think part of that is sort of slowing down of your normal leisurely reading process.
yes, it
You
is.
might pick up a novel and, read the first chapter or read a really crucial dramatic scene in the novel.
Yeah,
And then to kind of close it and put it to one side and either get your notepad out or at least have a think,
mm,
what is it that I'm feeling now? What is
yeah,
it that this writer has left me feeling with? And
yeah,
then from underneath that question, you can start unpacking what is it that they've done in their
mm,
writing? What techniques have they used? What imagery have they used? What
yeah,
pacing and perspective is on display that has
mm,
allowed that effect to come out?
definitely,
And that's the
definitely.
process that you have to go through as a reading writer, or
Absolutely. And
writing reader.
you don't have to have an English degree or whatever to do this. This is just
Yeah, it's about asking
you,
the right questions.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Um, and what many sort of motivated and driven first novel writers can sometimes do, in my experiences, they can um, tell the story as if they are recounting it to an official.
Yeah.
um, you know, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then this happened, and then that happened, and they all lived happily ever after. That's it. Um, and This is where reading good novels or reading the novels of writers that you really enjoy reading will show you that there are other skills that you can adopt. And this is when I think my experience, anyway, of working with these people is that they start to think, oh, I'd never realized that um, novelists basically are control freaks.
Mm.
They control the narrative by holding back, by inferring. There is a thing, isn't there, for people, all right, creative writing 101 is learning when to inform the reader, when to tell the reader what's happening, and then when to hold back by showing them or inferring.
Mhm.
And that's a real, this kind of push and pull, this dynamics of writing is something that is really particularly important in a long form creative piece, because if you are writing, and crime is a very pop crime and thriller, for example, writing, these are the ones that stay in the bestsellers. These are the ones that you buy in Waterstones on the way to the airport. These are the ones you find in at charity shops because people have read them very quickly. The control that's required, as well as plot, is something that sort of early writers find really difficult to deal with. So this is about practice. Um, and I always use the analogy of learning a musical instrument.
Hmm.
It's all well and good sitting down saying, I really want to learn to play the guitar, or I really want to learn to play. I love the sound of the piano. Um, it, the good thing about those instruments is you can hear yourself making mistakes, and you hear yourself where you've got your fingers in the wrong place, and you can find out where it is that it's not working and pull it right back by practicing and practicing and practicing. If you've ever learned to play a musical instrument, you know that one of the things you've got to do is keep playing the same piece again and again and
Hmm.
again until you've realized where you're falling down and where it's not working. And actually, um, creative writing works in the same way. You keep writing, you keep seeing where it's not working, where it is you're going too quickly or you're going too slow, or it's not going anywhere. Actually, it's I'm loving this description so much. We're not moving at all. That's where you cross it all out, and that's that. I just read a book called Don't Call It Art. I think it's out in a few weeks. It's by this chap called, his surname is Cleon. I think his first name might be Adrian or Adam. I can't remember. Anyway, he's the chap who is a very creative fellow, and he gets hold of old classic novels and he blanks things out and
Yes,
finds
okay.
meaning.
Yep.
And he's written in there. And one of the things that he said is that there was an experiment. He didn't give any names, where there were two groups of people, writers. The first group of people were asked to just write as much as they possibly could about anything, but they had to write as much as they had to write. It was all about quantity.
Hmm.
The second group of people was all about quality. So don't write very much, but make sure that you write quality, right? And what was really interesting was that in the best quality work came out of the quantity group
Because they were doing more of it.
because they were doing more of it. And that's the key is fill out as many notebooks as you possibly can.
Hmm.
Um, top up as many Word documents as you possibly can, and have as many files as you can. If you're going to write a novel, you've got to kind of limber up to producing. But be aware that the production of words means that you will be deleting a lot of them. And that's another skill to learn when you're writing a novel is
Absolutely.
you're going to delete more than you actually end up with, and that's okay. Chuck it away,
Yep.
fill your bin. That's
Completely.
it.
Yep.
So I think those are the kind of so moving on to so you want to write a novel. Go on then. Great. And we all love reading them. And it would be fantastic for there to be really more great novels that have got, a really good story, and that we're loving the way that the linguistics works. Um, it's also true to say that more and more experimental novels are now being published, stuff that wouldn't otherwise in the past have done so. So if you think you've got a really um, different and unique way of using language, go for it. And I think that's the key. We were talking earlier about listening to people like really, prolific writers like Lee Childs and Harlan Coben, who write
Hmm.
these fast-moving, very successful series of novels and things that end up being on TV. These tend to be the people that are, uh, the epitome of what people want to be. And whether you enjoy those novels or not, it doesn't really matter. But if you listen to those people talking, um, they all say pretty much the same thing, and that is, "We'll just do it then,"
Yeah.
right?
Turn up.
Yeah,
One word
turn
after
up,
another.
get on with it. Stop talking about it and get on with it.
Hmm. I mean, I
And
remember an old colleague of ours, Candy Miller, who's a
yeah,
brilliant novelist in her own right. Uh, I remember I was a lowly PhD student at the time, and one of her students had come to her, and she'd done a really great piece of work for her assignment, and she was feeling good and confident about it, and she now wanted to take the scene that she'd written and turn it into a novel,
mm,
or at least make a start into turning it into a novel. And she asked Candy, "How do I do that?" how do
Mm.
I write a novel? And she
Mm.
said, well, you take what you've got so far, which is a scene, and then you work into the next scene, and then you
Mm.
add another scene, and then you keep writing scene after scene after scene until the.
You're finished. Yeah.
And I remember giggling to myself at the time. It was a giggle of amusement at the kind of drollness it can be,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also of the truth of it
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. That's it.
Um, it's that really is it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about turning up and being there and getting words down. I mean, it's not necessarily, I don't think, about setting yourself, right, I'm going to write 1,000 words a day. I'm going to
No.
write 500 words a day. I'm going to do that
No.
national, what is it, nano
Oh,
period.
no,
Uh,
no. Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
write a
Yeah.
novel in a month type stuff. I don't think that's,
Right.
you don't necessarily have to do that. Although I
No.
do think having some kind of target or tracking of your
Hmm.
output is quite useful. I mean, it is
Yeah,
for
I do.
runners and swimmers and cyclists and all sorts. And I think
Absolutely.
it
Yeah.
helps. It helps encourage you, but it's not necessary.
Mm.
So turning up is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Reading attentively
Yeah.
and reading, paying attention to the technicalities of the problem
Yes.
is really important. And trying to put what you learn from reading into practice and
Yeah.
failing and retrying and failing and retrying through that kind of
Yeah.
rehearse, revisit type of process is really important as well. And the
I
other thing
think
that
so.
we've kind of picked up on in this conversation so far is that splurge that's required for many
Mm.
writers. And it's not necessarily for all, but I think for most, I would say, you
Yeah.
need that crappy first draft as
You
well.
definitely do.
And this
Yeah.
then takes us into some interesting areas around whether a writer is a what they call a plotter or a pantser
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you mentioned earlier in this conversation that some writers, well, it just fell out of my head and onto the page, and here
Mm.
we are.
Mm. Mm.
Um, I mean, I think to a large extent that's a bit of a myth.
Oh, yeah.
I
It's
mean,
definitely. Yeah.
the great figure of that type of writing is Kerouac, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jack Kerouac and On the Road and Dharma Bums and these sorts of things. But even
Yeah.
when you look at the manuscript for On the Road,
Mm.
you can see he's got his editor's hat on
Of
as
course
much
he
as he
has.
has.
Yeah.
When you look at the initial manuscript to the finished work,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a different beast
It
altogether.
is. Yeah.
So it's not that things just fall out of one's head,
No.
or very rarely anyway.
No.
Um,
I
but I've
think
also
parts of
heard,
it
I mean, I've
might.
heard of people like Kit Duvall, for example. She's one of our honorary doctorates at the University of Wolverhampton. When she gave a talk for our students, she was talking about having spreadsheets
Mm.
of different plot points and different
Mm.
scenes and character details, and she marks it all out in a way that, an architect would
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
where do you sit on that?
Well, I
If there
mean,
is such an imagined spectrum of plotters versus pantsers.
I don't think there is, I must admit. And I do get a little bit, I think this kind of scientific, logical aspect of things like that is a shame because I think what people do is they'll go, well, I'm not one and I'm not that, so I can't be a writer. Uh,
Mm,
um, and um, I do have a friend who writes Becca Maskell, and she writes under lots of different names. She writes historical novels, and contemporary novels, and literary fiction, and all this under different names. And she definitely falls into the planner. She's one of those people who just covers a wall with, post-it notes
hmm
and plans out great long 10,000 words of planning. And it's for her, that itself is the warm up. And then she says, when she's got all of that in her head, some in some kind of chaotic fashion, then she'll sit down and basically just writes it or writes the first draft of it, which is
mm,
quite well polished, leaves it and then goes back to it. Um, I have tried that version. And what I find is that in the process of that kind of planning, I'm frustrated that I can't write the bloody thing. You know,
Mm.
I just want to write it.
Just
I
want to
think,
get
God,
into
this is
it.
brilliant. And if I don't, so then I absolutely cannot do that. So for me, what I have of I have an outline plan, I think what you would call an outline plan of this, and I which I just write up in handwriting. This happens, then this happens, then this happens, then that happens. This is probably going to happen, and I've got it on I have it on a great big piece of paper with, oh yeah, and that will probably happen next. So I have a sort of an A3 sheet, in pencil, so that I can cross things out and rub things out, where I can see, oh, I'm basically maybe starting here, then I'll go to that. And then I'll start writing it from there. Inevitably, it changes drastically from what it was going to be in the first place. Um, if I look for example at God's Country, for instance,
Mhm.
all I had there was a plan of somebody coming back, some bloke coming back to the Black Country to a funeral. It's his twin brother. Um, and I want to talk about, the place really has changed, but hasn't changed. That's about it. And in the writing of it, in that first draft anyway, I was kind of discovering what his backstory was.
Yeah.
But I knew that there was something unsettling, of course, because I love all that stuff, and that's everything that I write is always about this. Um, and I knew that it was going to be very place based, and I knew that his girlfriend had never been back here, so there were going to be these kind of that's really all I'd got. I certainly couldn't. I don't think I really want to do that sort of scientific um, planning. And I was at yesterday. I was at Sue Wolf's online um, launch of her new novel, which, by the way, took 8 years for her to
Yeah,
write.
well, there you
Eight.
go. That's something that's worth bearing in mind, isn't
It
it?
really is. And she was saying that because she lives in a very small flat in Sydney, she said she puts her laptop on top of her refrigerator, because she's got no space. She's just got one bedroom, and that's their bedroom. She puts a laptop on top of the refrigerator, and she said, and all I had every day was like 40 minutes, because of work and family and everything. So I had to, anything that I'd got, I had to store up. I've got 40 minutes, and that's what I had to do. I had to do it then. Um, but it took her 8 years, and 8 years to do with things like editing, re-editing, putting it out, and so on. So it's different for everybody. How about you, Rob? Are you a planner, would you say?
I definitely lean more towards the fly by the seat of my pants type of
Yeah,
stuff than I do with the plotting. But like you say, you can't sort of do one without the other.
yeah,
Um, I've, I mean, my advice to my students quite often, and this is from personal experience, is not to overthink your plot
yeah, yeah.
because I've had ideas for stories or ideas for novels in the past where I've got such a clear idea of the
Mm.
trajectory of the characters and the movement and what's going to happen when to who,
Yeah,
that because my idea is so clear,
yeah,
um, my writing suffers because
yeah,
I end up being a bit too didactic and I
yeah.
end up writing descriptions of one moment to another
You know
rather
where you're
than
going.
allowing
Mm.
the kind of energy and the juice and the sort of poetry to come to the fore
Yeah,
as well. And
yeah,
you need, in order to have that push and pull, the dynamic shifts in prose and pace and perspective and whatnot that's required of a long piece to engage
yeah,
a reader in a long piece. I think you need a sense of um, kind of unease or
yeah,
in
yeah.
of not being
I agree.
sure of yourself too much. So
Yeah,
so that part of the act of writing is not that you're just getting something down, but that you're figuring it out as you're doing it as well.
yeah.
So for me, I start with a set of images quite often. I'll
Mm.
start with a bunch of ideas around a particular location or setting, or even if it's just something a little bit more abstract, like an atmosphere or a mood. And
Mm.
that becomes the driving force, at least for those initial stages of things, you know. And I worry about giving it proper shape and structure
Yeah,
and whatnot
yeah,
after after
yeah,
that's more of an editing issue for me rather than a initial
definitely
creative
is.
thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I've written two novels, you've written four,
Mm.
um, or at least the ones that are published anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there is a novel that I wrote as an undergraduate that will never see the light of day.
I've got to see those.
Um, but I mean, it still has some good moments in it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I so my first novel, and I think this is another thing that's worth mentioning that quite often I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this as somebody who's done it uh, more times than I have. Um, my first novel, and it was a very, very steep learning curve for me.
Mm.
I
Mm.
mean, I'm a writer, but at the top of that list of attributes, I always put poet first. In
Mm.
my mind, I think of myself as a poet more than anything else, and that's really where my passion lies as well. So I'd written poetry for many, many years, and I dabbled in prose and worked, written some fairly decent short fiction over the years as well. But it was poetry that was my main thing. And even though I'd written long poems or sequences of poems, and I'd had that kind of instruction and discipline and craft of producing a big project, if you
Yeah.
like, it's a very, very different set of skills and circumstances and mindset
Yeah.
to writing the novel. So I was very lucky that I had kind of mentorship from Paul MacDonald.
Oh, good old Paul. Yeah, he's
Um,
great, isn't he?
he's a
Yeah.
brilliant novelist
Yeah.
and a great teacher. Um, so I was lucky enough to have him by my side when I was writing my first novel. Um, but it it struck me very, very quickly like this is a very different beast. I'd
Yeah.
gone from playing pool to playing snooker. That's
Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
I'd gone from
Yeah.
being a sprinter to being a long distance runner.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not that there's more work in either of them, really. It's just a
No,
different
it's
set of work.
different.
Like
Yeah.
I think the sprint marathon or the pool snooker analogy
Yeah.
works
It's a
quite
good one.
nicely for this because,
Yeah.
in order to be a good pool player, and a frame of pool might last 30 seconds, it might last 4 minutes, but very
Mm.
rarely goes over
Mm.
got your 5 minute mark really. Whereas a snooker frame can be anything between 1 minute 47,
Yeah.
Ronnie O'Sullivan's famous 147, all the way up to 45 minutes, an hour
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. And so there's a very different, even though there's very similar skills in getting
Mm.
down to a shot and making sure your cue's straight and finding the angles and whatever, and there's certain kind of strategies that are involved that are very similar.
Mm.
Um, one's very much well, there's a different effect
Yeah, for
for
sure.
the different things, and the
A
same
different
with
approach.
running
Yeah.
and sprinting. Like we probably think of the marathon as like the peak of
Yes. Yeah.
athletic prowess
Endurance, really. Yeah.
and whatever.
Yeah.
But there's as much work that goes into the 9 second sprint
Mm. Mm.
as there is that goes into the marathon
Yeah.
as well in terms of training and getting yourself ready for it and whatever. Anyway, I digress. So it was a steep learning curve for me from going from the processes involved in poetry and short fiction into the novel.
Mm.
And I think what happened, I mean, I'll just describe it to you, that I wrote the first draft of the novel in 9 months.
Mm.
I mean, I was lucky I didn't have a day job at the time.
Right.
I was doing my PhD. I had a scholarship to do the PhD. So my whole life was reading and writing. That's all.
Yeah. Right.
So that gave me the freedom and the time to get it down. But what came next after those initial 9 months was another 2.5 years of getting that editor's hat on and going,
Mm.
that's not right. That needs to change. This needs to move over to there. Oh God, if such and such doesn't meet John in the pub anymore, it means he
Yeah,
doesn't get the key. And if he doesn't get the key, it means he can't get to so I've, it was a
all the
very
threads.
interesting but frustrating experience of,
Yeah,
right, I've taken that domino out. So now everything
yeah,
else doesn't work
yeah.
as well. Um, so that, I think the vast majority of the effort and energy for me as a novelist is in the polishing and the sculpting of the idea
Mm.
after
Yeah,
as well. And it's not
yeah,
that you don't spend that much time with you're doing a similar process on a poem. Uh,
yeah.
it's just that because of the weight of it, because of the length of it, and because of the way that com different complex things link together with other difficult complex things, it becomes
Mm.
a lot more difficult to manage, or at least is difficult the right word?
It's a different aspect of things,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's the
No, I
different.
mean
It.
you can spot the problems a lot quicker. It's like if you've written a sonnet, for example. It's not to say that a sonnet's not easy.
Mm,
I mean, it's not to say a sonnet's easy.
mm,
It isn't. It's a very difficult thing to master, especially if you're paying attention to all of the formal conventions of a sonnet.
yeah,
Um, but if something's not working in a sonnet, you've got a square on a piece
yeah,
of paper to fix. You know what I mean? And so the problems become easier to see and
yes,
identify. It's
yeah,
not to say that you can fix them easily, but you can at
yeah,
least spot them easily. Whereas if
yeah,
you're writing a novel, you might have to read through that draft 40
yeah.
times.
To
That
get
might
to,
take you
yeah,
4 hours each time to
absolutely,
read
yeah.
through it. And then you've
Mm.
got to make a list on a piece of paper next to you going,
It's
John
on page this.
did in the
Yeah,
pub.
yeah,
They didn't get the key.
yeah,
You've
yeah,
you've spelt colour wrong on page 92. All
yeah,
of these different things you've got to keep going and over
yeah.
and over again. And so laborious is probably the better
Yes,
term than or maybe more labour intensive
yeah,
is a better term
yeah,
as well. Um, and so yeah, that was a steep learning curve. Although I think being able to get the not rushed as such, but that relatively sprinty first draft done in a kind
yeah.
of 9 month period
Mm.
was really good for me
Yes,
because
yeah,
for my type of writing, in terms of my novel writing at least, I needed those 2 years
yeah,
to
yeah.
keep going through it, keep going through it, keep revising, keep tightening, keep
Mm,
polishing,
mm,
as well. And I
yeah,
suppose to a certain extent it was the same with my second novel.
yeah.
First novel's called Bella. My second novel's called The Renner, and they were both published by Wild Press Books. Um, the Renner was a sort of different beast, really, because I started out writing flash fictions. I started
Did
out
you?
writing, and I had this. I just wanted some kind of creative experiment to take
Mm,
place. Uh, and so the estate that was living on at the time, the Wren's Nest in Dudley, all of those streets, all the streets on the estate are named after different flowers or different bushes or different trees. And I thought to myself, well, that's cool because there's loads of folklore associated and
mm,
kind of whatever magical ideas and folkloric ideas, mythological ideas associated with different trees and plants and bushes
mm,
that I can draw on. And I've got this idea of a community living together where the roots of the streets are also connected with the roots of kind of myth as
mm,
well. So that kind of came together quite nicely for me. But all I had to begin with that novel was I want to write a very short 150, 200 word piece for each street on Wren's Nest. And I'll be honest with listeners as well. My agenda, my kind of creative agenda was to write I didn't want it to be funny as such, but I
Mm,
wanted the prose to do as much as it possibly could in a shorter space of time,
mm.
akin to the great comedy monologue writers
Okay, right.
like Les Dawson and the two Ronnies,
Excellent.
and those sorts of figures.
Yeah,
And but what happened in the process of doing this experiment was this voice kept coming back.
right.
This guy's voice, and this was a complete accident to some extent, but it was an
Mm.
accident forged through already having a fairly solid creative scaffold in place,
Yes, yeah.
um, of place and mood and that kind of weird stuff.
Mm,
Um, yeah, so this voice kept coming back, and I couldn't ignore him. I couldn't
mm,
ignore him. This kind of angry, like menacing
mm,
voice kept coming
mm.
back. And that's then what started to take over the
Yeah.
impetus of the story. Um, but even when I'd finished the first draft, even perhaps when I'd finished the first three drafts of what
Mm,
became the Renner, it was still a disjointed mess of distinct narratives just happened to be in the same voice. And they were
right.
connected by place and ideas of memory and family and community. That was it.
Mm, mm,
And it wasn't really at that point until my editor from Wild Press Books got involved and said, "This is good. I really like what you're doing. The place is coming through. There's got a lot, but."
mm.
And it wasn't really until I got that collaboration between the writer and the editor on the
Yeah,
Ren that
yeah,
I started to understand that there needed to be a bit more of a kind of uh, narrative structure, a proper narrative structure that needed to be.
yeah, yeah,
And so I needed to start to throw in um, a more layered, uh, well, more layered cues and motifs
yeah,
about it,
yeah.
and more anchoring points for the reader to grasp the implied narrative
Absolutely.
as
And I
well.
think you just picked up on something really important there. And I think this is the bit that first time novel writers, oh, they don't like this idea at all. They don't like it. And that is sharing your work with somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, there is something really intimate and kind of very sort of claustrophobically intimate actually about the writing of um, particularly long form novel writing or a long project. There's something really intimate about it because um, you're you're actually digging into something that means essentially something about you.
Mm.
This this novel, what you find that, don't you? Actually, I'm writing about something that is vitally important to me, and I'm kind of revealing this thing in words that I have never mentioned to anybody else before,
Yeah.
Uh, and as it's interesting that you talk about this voice that was kind of emerging from the creative act of the process of writing. Um, this is something innately that was yours, and I think what people will say, again, this has happened to me a lot. It probably has to you as well. I'm writing a novel, but I'm not going to let anybody read it. Not until it's
Mm.
absolutely fine. Well, it won't be absolutely fine until you let somebody else read it. That said, what's also really important is that you allowed someone who who you trusted and who had some experience, quite a lot of experience of reading novels and publishing novels, who could be trusted to give you this um, really vitally important and useful information about something that you had already felt wasn't quite right,
Mm.
and couldn't probably put your fingers on. So if you, I'm all for writing groups, and I'm all for sharing your work, but I think it's about being judicious about who you share your work with as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's
Um,
no good giving it to your nan who's going to say, "Oh,
no,
you've done ever such a
no,
good
it's
job there.
lovely. I
What a
loved it.
clever."
You're ever so clever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All that, or
Or
you
somebody who's going to completely destroy it for no good
oh,
reason other than their
exactly,
own
exactly.
hubris.
Yeah, and
Mm.
I think as well. That said, even you choose somebody, who knows a bit about writing, or if if they are a little bit critical of it, grow up.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, you know, they are just doing it because you asked them,
yep.
and
You can't be a boxer unless you're willing to take a punch in the face
exactly
occasionally. You
that,
can't be a
exactly
novelist
that.
without getting your feelings
Yeah,
a little bit hurt.
yeah. So you do have to kind of prepare yourself with a bit of resilience on this. And that is the other thing, that the other piece of advice that I would give is that, I think a lot of writers are quite sensitive souls, just generally. This is a sweeping statement, but aren't they? But a lot of our students, for instance, are quite sensitive
Mm.
souls. But you do learn that you can develop some armor on this, because people are going to go, I'm not quite sure about this thing that you've written.
Yeah,
I didn't like it as much as the others. You will get people being very blunt about it. So getting other people to look at it who know what they're talking about, or who you trust, who isn't just going to go, that was marvelous, thank you, you're so wonderful, this will
yeah.
sell millions, is also a really good piece of advice, isn't it? Yeah.
I think so,
And I,
and I think that's again another shout to the kind of study of creative and professional
yeah,
writing
yeah,
at degree level and at the University of Wolverhampton is what you get in studying
mm,
writing across 3 years
yeah,
is regular and uh
honest.
and yeah and honest and
Mm,
kind of curated, I suppose,
mm,
um opportunities to get that feedback and discuss
yeah,
your work and figure out through debate and dialogue and reworking
yeah,
what that is and yeah, there's another kind of really important thing that you get from a
definitely.
prolonged study of writing as well.
And we're
Um,
right back to that. We're right back to our first podcast with that, aren't we?
yeah,
As
absolutely.
why study creative and professional writing for that very reason.
Well,
Uh,
that's a crucial one at least. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think it's a really vitally important thing. And I think, interestingly, when I look at our sort of outgoing level sixes, these are the people who have just finished, they've just handed in everything, and their independent study is in, and they're waiting to graduate next month. Is that the the creative contacts that they have made with each other,
yeah.
which is another aspect of the writing of a novel that is vitally, vitally important,
Hmm.
because you cannot do it by yourself. And like it or not, the writing of a novel is part of a business that you're trying to develop within, for yourself as well. And so it is about um, connecting with people. It's all about actually, the whole thing about writing a novel is about connections. The threads and connections within the plot and story and characterization and all the creative elements are important, but also the connections that you make yourself while you're writing this thing, to so that you can um, not only improve what your novel is about, or what the creative elements of it are, but you also sort of develop your own creative contacts. And of course, that is something that coming to do a creative and professional writing degree at the University of Wolverhampton, for instance, would give you. And that's what I've been really interested to see about, particularly of that. By the time people have done their 3 years with us, they really have created some really close and important connections with each other, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they really have. It's beautiful to see.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And it's important. You can't do this by yourself.
No, you can't. You can't. I mean, a lot of it you do on your own. You know, they're your words, it's your time, and it's your energy and focus that's going into those drafts and whatever. But you've got to hand it over, and you've got to have discussions, and you've got to have a, a collaborative wrestle. as
definitely.
well.
And I think you know when we do our writing weeks, we do our our writing weeks, don't we,
Hmm.
twice in each semester. And we do that online writing retreat, and people go, how the hell does that even work? And yet the surprise
There's
about
something
how
about being in a
successful they are.
space, whether it's a
There is,
physical one
isn't
or a
there?
digital one, that
Yeah,
encourages people to bring the best out in people. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Is a sort of there's an extra impetus and an extra motivation
Hmm.
that just being with people who you trust and who you end up liking, and you end up getting along with really well, and you've all got this kind of same thing, same ambition, really, for that very short period in that couple of hours that you spend. I think that's kind of sort of a very important part of being a writer, and certainly if you're going to be writing the long form of writing a novel.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll bring this to a close in a moment, I think, Carrie, because we've been
Yeah.
talking for
Okay.
an hour or so.
Okay.
Um, I want to know a little bit from you, though, before we do, um, how your thoughts, your creative process, your creative decision making, and whatnot has
Mm.
shifted from your first novel, Black Country,
Yeah.
to your
Oh
fourth
yeah.
novel, Lie of the Land,
Yeah.
with Gamble and God's Country in
In
between.
between.
Have they
Yeah.
been very different processes for each novel? Have you learned something new and enabled yourself to become quicker or more efficient as the novels have gone
Mm.
across? Or is it just, I don't know what I'm getting into, let's see
Mm.
where it takes me each time?
I, th I think I think I think that's a really interesting question and a really complicated one to answer, because I'd had the idea about, I was one of those people, I'd had the idea about writing the Black Country, this kind of, not the whole plan, not the whole plot, but there'd been something about that story that had been bothering me for a very long time.
Hmm.
And what enabled me to write it was deciding to do further study, deciding to do an MA in creative writing. And I decided to do this MA in creative writing because the dissertation was you had to write the novel. And I thought, I'll write this thing that's been going around in my head. And that had been brewing for a long time. And I'd kind of experimented with the odd short story here and there, with the characters popping up, and I was at that stage that, early or debut novelists or first time novelists are at, where I just wasn't sure whether I could do it, whether I couldn't do it. So I suppose that the actual writing of your first novel, and for me, demonstrated to me that I could write a novel, and I could write a novel that I'd written, that could
It
be
was as good as you
published, and
wanted it to be.
other people, yeah, other people
Mm.
would buy it, and it was traditionally published. And so there was the verification from that, I think, had a really big impact
Mm.
on me, because it made me think I can definitely do this, I can definitely do
I'm as
it.
smart as I think I am.
I am as well.
Well, I've got to say that there was a part of that for me. Like,
Yeah,
am I as good
yeah,
as I say I am?
yeah. Yeah, should I, you do get to that point, should I just shut up talking about this novel writing,
Mm.
or what? So it made me think, right, okay, get on with it. I've done it. Um, so I think what I've done since then is, um, I've learned it continues to be a massive learning curve, not only about the craft of writing, which I think we're always learning, and we should always realize that we're
Yep.
continuing to learn about what we don't know. And I love that. I love that thinking, oh, I didn't realize that, even now.
Hmm.
I feel like I feel like I know a bit about writing novels, but I'm always happy to continue to keep learning. The other thing I think
Yeah, I mean, I
is,
think if you think you know it all, then you're just going to become
yeah,
complacent, and that's
and
perhaps
you're
where
never going to change.
writers
Yeah,
do just start churning it out, and the reader recognizes it.
yeah. And I do think that sort of, whereas I think before I'd written the first novel, I just thought I was a little bit weird now I know I'm weird. So, so, so I've kind of come to terms with it. And honestly, I do think that there is something in that. And not no less important is for your friends and family. It if you say to them, sorry, I'm writing, they leave you alone now, you know, because you've got this kind of background. So that big element of having time,
Mm,
which is an important part because you've got to get your head in the game, is this, but is very, very important. But I do think it continues to be an evolutionary process. And I feel like I'm still learning, but I am ever fascinated by my own thinking and my own brain and my own thoughts that go through it. So um, I I still love it, and I suppose when I stop loving it, when I stop loving about these long form writing projects, then I'll stop doing it. But
mm.
I do love the challenge of it. I love the frustration of it, uh, um, and I've got a lot better at deleting things or stopping writing things that I think this is just not working. Why are you wasting your time? So I've got quite a lot of that.
Yeah.
And you, how about you? Because uh, you've written two novels and lots and lots and lots of poetry, and that poetry is definitely, as you say, top of your
Yeah, I mean,
list.
I
But
think,
you are a novelist as well.
yeah, I mean, quite often I think of I mean, this is going to sound really pretentious, but it bear with me. Uh, I sort of think of my creative process in a kind of long-term thing, a bit like you would a river.
Mm,
And by that I mean you start off in the foothill in the mountains and it's just a tiny little trickle, and then you get further down and it's this long, slow, meandering thing. And then there's moments where there's rapids and ripples and all sorts, and then it kind of zooms out again. And so
mm,
across my year or across several years, there'll be moments where I'm in the ripples and I'm like, right,
mm,
poetry, poetry, poetry. I'm a poet, nothing else. I don't want to do anything else. I'm only about poetry. And then there'll be
mm,
other
mm.
periods where I'm like, well, I've fallen in love with the essay again. I'm going to start
Yeah,
essays again.
yeah,
And then there'll be periods where I'm kind of back up in the mountains and things are trickling,
yeah.
starting to feel my way into the flow, if you like, of a novel. So it sort of comes and goes for me,
Mm,
depending on where I am in the year, sometimes
yeah,
where I am in a decade or whatever. It's a sort of
yeah.
very weird cyclical, but
But
an
it sounds like you're going with
unpredictably cyclical
you're
thing.
going with a sort of an instinct that you're
Yeah,
allowing yourself to sort of fall into whatever it is that this instinct is telling you to do, rather than
yeah,
kind of forcing it with the logical side of
yeah.
your brain. And I'm
That's
uh
it. And you
yeah,
sometimes you just know as well, like if you've got an idea and you start putting some words down on the page, or you're kind of playing around with different images or different phrasings or whatever.
yeah,
After you've done that for several years, like you and I have, you start to get a bit of an instinctive idea
yeah,
quite quick, and you become quite efficient at recognizing, right, this is the sort of idea that belongs as an essay, and this is the sort of idea that belongs as a piece of
yeah,
drama, and this is the
yeah,
sort of, and
mm,
whatnot. So
mm, mm,
that's kind
yeah,
of how I work, really. I mean,
yeah,
if you ask me today, I'm in such a kind of poet state of mind at the moment. It's been so long since I've kind of looked at a novel length piece of work for me that there's almost a part of me that would go, I don't think I've got a novel in me.
right,
I don't think I've got
right,
another one in me.
mm,
But if you asked me in 18 months' time, I
maybe do,
might be
yeah,
I might be two-thirds of the way through one.
yeah,
So it's an unpredictable thing for me, but
yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
fine. And I
Yeah.
think that that's something that you learn with experience and time. And you know, you can't guess or plan. for that to be the way of the trajectory of your writing career.
Yeah,
It just
absolutely.
it
Yeah.
just is.
Hmm.
It's not like it's not like a business plan where you can think, well, I'm going to just do it this way.
Yeah. And
You'll do
I'm a
it.
bit of a magpie when it comes to those sorts of things as well. And, some people are novelists. That's it. That's what they do. There's nothing else. Some people
Mm,
are short story writers and that's it. And that's what they do and nothing else. And I envy those people to some extent because I think how lovely to be absolutely dedicated to a particular form or a particular thing.
mm,
And maybe I would be a better novelist, writer, poet, essayist if I was just one thing.
mm.
But that's just not me.
No, no.
Just not me. Um,
Yeah.
I'm a flip-flopper,
But
but I'm a
you,
flip-flopper with discipline, so that's fine.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
it. But once yeah, you're sort of hovering above several of these creative elements, and then settling on something. But when you settle on something, you're really focused on it,
Yeah,
and that's absolutely fine.
that's it. It's like the movement between being an explorer and then the movement into being a pilgrim,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
One's going in search of something and it has a need for something, and one has got proper disciplined focus and a higher purpose.
So are you working on something now, or are you in that
Yeah, well, I mean,
transitionary
funnily
phase?
enough, I mean the poems that I am working on at the moment are narrative in nature. I'm
Mm.
writing, I'm trying at least to write a sequence of poems about the life of Saint Catherine of Siena,
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember you
who's an
talking about that.
amazing,
Yeah,
uh,
Saint Catherine of
an
Siena.
amazing, brilliant life. Um,
Right.
and yeah, I just kind
Excellent.
of fell for her.
Right.
And now I'm working it, and yeah, don't ask me why. Why would I? What I mean, I suppose there's been plenty of people that have written about the lives of the saints,
Mm,
uh, but there's something I think about um, the way that the supernatural and the terrestrial come together.
mm.
Those sorts of stories
Yeah,
that lends itself a little bit more to the poetic wayfinding and explorative quality
cool.
as well.
Sounds good.
How about you?
Well, I am working on another novel, so um, so yeah, I'm yeah, in the in the coal mine of the writing of the novel just at the moment.
Excellent.
So that's going okay. That's and that's at the moment in one of its nipping along phases. I'm still in the first draft, but it's nipping along quite well. And I, as you know, I spent some time up in Moniac Moor Writing Retreat, which was great a couple of weeks back, and managed to have some conversations about it with Nicholas Royal, who was my editor at Salt, and he's not now anymore, but he used to be. And we had some really interesting conversations about that. So I know I feel like I'm going in the right direction with it, and I feel quite, I am at that point of obsession with it, which is a good point to be.
Yeah,
So
that's an
uh,
exciting point to be as well, isn't it?
it is where you just think, actually, yeah, this is working okay. Yeah, so that's it. Um, yeah, so yeah, lots of things on the go.
Well, I shall look forward to novel number 5.
Yeah, I shall
Excellent.
look forward to
Cool.
reading about St. Catherine of Siena also.
As and when it develops, yeah.
Yeah,
Cool. Right. Well, last month, we were talking about place writing and we finished our
yeah.
conversation on recommending a book uh, of good place writing or place writing that we found
Hmm.
exciting in some
Hmm.
way. So
Yeah,
let's make that a bit of a tradition with this podcast then, Kerry, I think.
okay. Yeah,
We've spoken about the novel. Everyone can write a novel. So you want to write a novel. What are the
yeah,
kind of things that you need to bear in mind?
yeah.
So could you give us or the listener, I don't know, maybe two, three
Hmm.
novels that you think, right, this is gonna put you on the right track, or it help me on the right track. It might help you too.
Okay, sort of
Yeah.
inspirational novels. Okay, I think I probably mentioned this, maybe this writer last time, but I'm going to mention him again, and that is Paul Auster, no longer with us, sadly died at the end, I think of last year. Um, he was a writer who lived in New York, and his writing, in a way, breaks some of the rules of novel writing, largely because of the way in which he uses he encourages narrative pace through what you might ultimately say is kind of informing the reader, but it works incredibly well because of the way in which he constructs the sentences. I know that sounds really weird, but as a reading it as a writer, you'd think, well, this shouldn't really work, but it does because of the style and kind of
Mm.
cadence of of the sentences. The other book, actually, this is not a novel, but it is a really cool book about writing, and this is Will Storr's The Science of
Science of
Storytelling,
storytelling. Yeah, excellent book.
which I think is so beautifully written,
Mm.
um, and yet contains some inspirational ideas that make you understand how you yourself um, are uh, are already doing. You're probably already doing this stuff, but making it clear how aspects of storytelling work on a person's brain, I think
Mm.
is definitely the place. And interestingly, this is we were talking about this the other day. I have started to reread John Lutz's psychological thriller called Single White Female. Oh
Ah,
yes, because
brilliant.
I'm going to the theatre tomorrow to see it. But it's a novel that was set in 1990, written in 1990 and set in 1990, and it is a beautifully planned, beautifully uh, the threads are even, I mean, we talked about the film is brilliant, but the novel is even more clever, and the
Okay,
way
I'm
in
going to have to get
it's
a copy of this because
shot,
I love
honestly,
the film. Love the
oh yeah, it is just beautifully written. And it, I mean, I know the film and I know the plot sort of thing, but the way in which he uses the very strict rules of psychological thriller are played around with in a way that is just fabulously written and a really fantastic voice. So that's what I would suggest. You can get it on
excellent.
Kindle, I think, for 5.99, just so you
There you go.
know.
Other books
How
I
about
recommend.
you? What about you?
Okay, well, you've gone for three. I'll go for three as well.
Okay.
Right. So, one of my absolute favorite novels of all time is The Exorcist
Oh
by
yes.
William Peter Blatty.
Yes, I
I
love it.
just it's a harrowing, horrible tale.
Yeah,
Um, but it's just so brilliantly crafted, and I think the way that Blatty builds atmosphere and mood and sort of different
yeah,
textures or different tonal qualities to his writing is a master. I mean, it's a masterclass in plot and kind
mm,
of narrative drive. Um, but there's something that's happening deeper in the word usage and the kind of layering of symbol,
yeah,
the
yeah.
layering of
I
different kind of
agree. Yeah,
textures or images and whatnot that really slowly accumulate across the story, across the
yeah.
book as well. So I think that's brilliant. That's one of my all-time favorites. I think I've got to mention this one. Juan Rulfo, the Mexican writer, and his
Mm.
novel Pedro Paramo is one of
Oh
my
right.
absolute favorite novels of all time. It's one of the books that I've probably reread more than any book ever,
Yeah,
except for maybe Blake or something.
yeah.
But uh, it's a brilliant story about a guy who makes a promise to his mother on her deathbed to go and find his sort of estranged father, and he goes
Right.
down into the village of Comala in Mexico,
Mm.
and finds himself in the land of the dead.
Wow,
It's just
great.
so brilliantly done that you don't really know what is a memory and what's a ghost and what's real and all of these different things. You enter this kind of time zone where space-time kind of falls in on itself. It's a
Oh,
brilliant
brilliant.
piece. Really, really
Perfect.
brilliant. Um, God, I had some others in my head. Yeah, not necessarily an enjoyable read, but one that I recommend to my students is Alain Robbe-Grillet
Oh, yes.
and
Yeah.
Jealousy. I mean, anything
Yeah.
by Alain Robbe-Grillet
But
is
jealousy in
good,
particular.
but Jealousy is brilliant because what you'd get from reading Jealousy, and again, a fairly short novel,
Yeah.
but one that you something that you get from reading Jealousy is the kind of craft of sustained menace,
Yeah.
sustained tension.
Yeah.
Nothing is happening.
Yeah.
Almost nothing happens in that novel of note. There's no kind of big action moment or
Mm.
big dramatic scene or great big kind of confrontation between good and evil.
Yeah.
Everything
It's
is kind of almost flat,
yeah.
but you've got these kind of symbols that anchor the story world and
Yeah.
these motifs that anchor the story world in terms of sort of geometry and shadows and things that are cracked around the corners and things like that.
Mm.
But you almost get no character, you almost get
Mm.
no dialogue. But they've got this sort of sustained unease all the way
Yeah.
through. So it's kind of a masterclass in how you have prolonged
Yeah. I love that one.
atmosphere and whatever that atmosphere is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Agreed.
those are
Oh,
my
some
three choices. Those are my
there's
three.
some good choices there. There. Get down Waterstones and get yourself those books, everybody, because
Absolutely.
they will
Absolutely.
definitely help you.
Cool. Right. Well, it's been a lovely talking to you again,
Yeah,
Ken.
it's been great.
And we
Yeah,
will
it's been
join
fantastic.
again next month
Yeah.
to chat, looking at our list of topics.
Yeah.
The next discussion we're going to have is dun dun dun. The machine will write for us, won't it?
Oh, yeah, that old
So we're
devil.
going to talk about digital aids, artificial so-called intelligence,
Yeah.
and large language models,
Yep.
amongst other things,
Okay.
next time we get together.
Sounds great to me. Look forward to
Until
it.
then, thank you for
Yep.
tuning in. Thank you for listening. Please share it wide with anybody that you think would like to listen to us. Think about joining the pack in creative and professional writing at the University of Wolverhampton. Check out Ripplebed Press. We're on
Mhm.
Substack. We're on YouTube. You know what to do.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.